presence tonight. We are here to thank the Congressman for his champion of eating disorder over the years. And when I was reflecting on what makes sense to talk about tonight, and wondering how did it happen that a small, tiny nonprofit like the Eating Disorders Coalition that has a very small staff, a very small budget, very few resources, how on earth did we capture the attention of Congressman Patrick Kennedy? Somebody who is so well respected by his colleagues, who's very well known, who, excuse me, I just had a quick hot flash here, sorry. Some sort of flash. How is it that we got Congressman Patrick Kennedy to champion eating disorders as a cause that he really cares about here on the Hill? And then it came to me. The Eating Disorders Coalition, we are really characterized by our heart. And the people who come here, year after year, lobby day after lobby day, and even for the first time, what brings you all here is your heart. Oftentimes, it's a broken heart, a heavy heart, definitely hearts that are hurting, and always, it's a passionate heart and a committed heart. So that's who you all are. That's what characterizes the Eating Disorders Coalition. I would say that's what's made us as successful as we've been over the 10 years. So, what a natural partnership to come together with Congressman Kennedy, because what characterizes him is heart. What got you to get mental health parity passed, you and Congressman Ramstad? When they were ready to sort of compromise things away that for you were critical, and it turns out for us, very critical. You stood in the face of all that pressure and didn't fold. Why didn't you? It's because of your heart and your commitment. What allowed you to get mental health issues into the Healthcare Reform Act? Again, there you were, standing firm and solid. It was your heart. And what allowed you to say yes? In 2006, at a congressional briefing, when I kind of put you on the spot and said, Congressman, maybe it'll be you who champions the first ever comprehensive eating disorders bill in the history of Congress. And you said, well, let me look at it. We have like pages of policy recommendations that took us years to hash through. And I got a call 3 hours later from his staff, Rachel Bornstein, and said, my boss wants to champion your eating disorders bill. So it was your heart that allowed you to say yes. And because of that, we now have the federal response to Eliminate Eating Disorders Act. So perhaps it's your heart that's telling you it's time to leave, to move on and do something differently. That's a guess. What I will say is that we will miss you. And when you are enjoying your next life, whatever it is that you're doing after this, please remember that you will always be in the hearts of all of us here. We're thinking, what can we give you to capture all this? We already gave you our policy award in 2007. We decided we need to capture this through a scrapbook. So we have given you a scrapbook, and we'll hand it to you in a moment. Before we do that, before you take the microphone, Congressman, we would like to show you a version of what is in your scrapbook on the screen here. So see this screen.
raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. Restless heart beats so imperfectly, but when you come, I am filled with wonder. Sometimes I think I glimpse eternity. You raise me up, raise me up. I can stand on mountains, to walk on stormy seas, the stormy sea, and I am strong when I am on your shoulder. Oh, you raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can.
That's amazing. Congressman, I'm speechless. I'm never speechless. I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. Gratitude. All those young people and all those people that have lost their lives are here tonight with us as well in this room, and appreciate. And we're going to stop that, and we're going to pass grade. And you've been such a part of this for all of us, and you've become such a dear friend. And I'm going to miss you personally when I come out here, because it seems like we've had this wonderful working, but also friendship relationship. So I want to present you with a scrapbook with some mementos of your days with the EDC. So, thank you.
Well, thank you all for this gift. I can't begin to put into words exactly all the reasons, that I am so grateful to all of you for your trusting me to carry this for you and keep working for you on this. And I'm not going to ever, even though I'm not going to be here in the Congress, be pushing this issue. In fact, it's my goal when I leave here to make, to continue the fight against stigma and prejudice, the central hallmark of the work that I do, by making doing away with this notion that things are mental illness or psychological or behavioral and talk about them all as they are, and that's neurological. And that's the way to go. And the way we're going to do that is we started this afternoon in a powerful, powerful hearing with the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. While we're doing a hearing on suicide, I get a notice that one of my constituents, Mr. Franklin, killed himself today in Fort Hood, Texas. And before he killed himself, he took his wife with him and left 2 children without parents. And the whole purpose of the hearing is to say this isn't going to be treated with stigma anymore, because if we treat it with stigma, we don't move forward. And we had a memo released by Department of Defense last week from their own psychiatrist at Walter Reed saying the fight to end suicide is an abysmal failure. They said it, finally. And it's ironic because they're going to come up, Gates is coming up within another month or so to present his DOD's new approach to taking this on. And at the hearing, DOD and VA both represented PTSD in the terms of behavioral, psychological, and mental health. And I said, you want to know why people are taking their lives? It's stigma. And those words are leaving them no room to think of their illnesses as combat wounds, physical, physiological, nothing else about it. So when he talked about, well, we're going to have our psychological, for those PTSDs here, we're going to have objective measurements for TBI over here. So wait a second. Did you not hear Tom Insel, 2 people just before you, say that all mental illnesses were physiological and neurological? 3 minutes after Insel testified, put a board on showing brain scans, throwing the correlation of disorders, he calls it psychological, behavioral on one hand as opposed to physiological, neurological on the other. I'm like, and that's your response to helping veterans who are supposed to be the toughest and strongest and be able to withstand anything, and you label that stigma on them when they're having issues because their brain got bombarded by IEDs. They were exposed to the unspeakable horrors of war, and their bodies are reacting to it because it's a physical change in the metabolism of their whole body and their brain. And we know that constant cortisol pumping through the brain changes the neurocircuitry. You don't need a PhD or an MD to know this is physical. And then we had the second round come up. We had this 2-tour veteran from Iraq show us pictures of an IED having just gone off in the Humvees in front of him. Yeah, he was running to respond, took a picture of the situation. So we got hit with another one after a rocket-propelled grenade. He said, when my friends who are still in the fight, who were exposed to that battle there, 10 years from now take their lives because we're not taking this seriously, that's going to be a win for the terrorists. That's going to be a win for our enemies because, as he said, they're playing for keeps. They want us dead, no matter how it comes about. If it doesn't happen right there and then on the roadside, it's happening 10 years later, and it's as good as it happened right there and then because it was attributed to their injury. It's a physiological change in the brain. It's a combat wound. And you have the New York Times, supposed to know better, talking about suicide prevention as if it's a 1-800 number. You're going to call, some person's going to counsel you out of it. That's the DOD's response, the VA's response. My point to all of you, and at this point in this general, is that our fight is going to be their fight. Their fight, they're carrying our fight if we win it properly. Because these vets are just up to their all over them in terms of what this impact of the war has done to them, and it's affecting them in all kinds of ways, physically and metabolically and every way. And yet we're still stigmatizing these illnesses because we can't see them. Because they come home, we'll treat their other injuries because they're visible, but we're not going to treat the signature wound on this war is an invisible injury to the brain. And if we're not in it to win it for our vets, I mean, not for nothing, I mean, it's a tough load just to carry the load for, you know, those like us in the community. We're all fighting the fight. These are our nation's heroes, and we can't even get it together to set aside the stigma and the stereotype that's associated with physical neurological disorders that are called mental illnesses, but we're frankly, with that connotation means it's something like a choice, or it's a, you know, it's mired in stereotype. These are physical. It's no different than any other part of the body, and yet we can't even get with it after top expert testimony in the DOD and VA, and they're not with it. So what we're going to launch is an effort of one mind on brain research. Everybody's the same. Autism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, eating disorders, addiction, dependency, you know, all of those. There's 600 neurological disorders that were identified in today's hearing. 600. I didn't know there were that many.
I want to go.
Well, I mean, and then I said, well, then do I account for a trifecta? They're triple counting me. They must be. So, I mean, the point is that we're going to launch this because if we get more attention to this disparate treatment of our nation's heroes, and more soldiers are taking their own lives in the war zone today than are being killed in action. And the last recorded month in June, suicides were upwards of nearly 40 per month. And you know they're reporting all of them. It's like no underreporting there, of course, because of stigma. I'm sure, you know, that thing is like just as high as it really is, when in fact we know it's much higher than that. But the military's into protecting people because of stigma and stereotype in society, from letting their loved ones know that's how their lives were sacrificed on the altar of freedom for our country. And we'll never know. So you think this is confined to eating disorders. Just let me understand something with you. This is the, you know, one of the new civil rights fights that we have for our day and time and generation. We haven't lost the other fights. Lord knows, you know, we barely got Lilly Ledbetter saying women ought to be paid the same as men. With the first speaker's first bill she went through, this president's first bill signed into law. Lord knows we're still playing scapegoats against people of Arab descent in this country. Somehow they're not as much Americans as anyone else because of where their ethnic heritage is. Certainly we all know that if you've got a Hispanic surname, you're certainly, you know, perceived as being less American than others because you somehow didn't get here the same way everyone else did. I mean, this fight against stigma and stereotype is pervasive in our society. So don't misunderstand. The fight you're fighting has been an American struggle from the very beginning of acceptance, tolerance. It was, you know, my state in Rhode Island, it was the Toro Synagogue. They had General Washington back then, and the Toro Synagogue Congress sent us a letter saying, to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. It's been the fight for our country and the history of this nation. And now you could apply those fights to this because they're all characterized by fear, they're characterized by unknowing, and they're characterized by this sense of this legacy of discrimination that we just persist with because we don't know enough to break the chain and move forward. My uncle in '63, the first televised national address on civil rights, said, who amongst us would trade places with someone else, trade the color of their skin, and be content with the counsels of patience and delay? Meaning, if you were happy with, so we don't need civil rights. I mean, okay, then you change the color of your skin. You go live in those conditions and see how it feels. Guess what? You know, put in those terms, maybe I wouldn't like to be treated that way because I'm a human being and I don't like to be dissed. Well, until we understood it as a universal moral question, he put it out there very clearly, we were moving forward. Still haven't gotten there. But in these days, on health issues, who amongst us would be content with the counsels of patience and delay, standing in the stead of any number of people in this country who we know we could free freed from their physical challenges if we got to it and treated them the way we would want to be treated, because you know what, that might be us trapped behind those enemy lines of stigma and stereotype, held hostage by this pervasive feeling that, oh, it's up to you to get with it, not some, you know what, that's the situation we got to put ourselves in, because there, but for the grace of God, go each and every one of us. And guess what? As Niemöller said in World War II, first they came for this group, I wasn't part of that group, then they came for this group, and I wasn't part of that group, and then they came for this, and then finally they came for me, and no one else was there. Because you know what? We're all there. We're all human beings. We're all interchangeable, and it could easily be me tomorrow, it could be you tomorrow with someone else's challenge. It's the pervasiveness of the un-American of rejecting people, pushing them away and making them feel like they're not as human and deserving of all the rights and privileges of the rest of us. That is essentially un-American. That's been the lifelong struggle for our country. And I can guarantee you this is like an afterthought in terms of passing if we change the attitudes in our country, because it's the attitudinal barriers that are keeping people segregated, locked up in these neurological disorders, because we're perceiving it different. We change our perception, we change our attitudes. This is like, then when people say, well, of course, of course, because that affects me, And you know what, we're learning more and more that it doesn't matter what the neurological illness, everybody's affected in some way. And, all I know is that this is a common fight. It's not, we can say that it's one disease group or another, but it's the battle that's common to all of us against this politics that says this isn't a popular, cause, or we're not going to put the political weight behind this. Because doesn't have the clout, it doesn't have the, the acceptance of an issue. If this were, cancer 30 years ago, they'd be treated like this. If it was AIDS 20 years ago, they'd be treated like this. Until what? Until we got to the science. Until we got past the misunderstandings and we wiped away the stigma and stereotype and said, hey, listen, let's get with this because this is something everybody gets now. We can't just, and we know better. We know the science, but we got to get it out there. But I'm just telling you not to be so disheartened. If we can't even get the science out there on TBI and PTSD because even people can't see it, and so they're not taking the highest suicide rates in our nation's history of our American heroes, and they're not taking that seriously. Just understand, your fight, their fight, our fight as Americans is the same, and it's against this notion that if you can't see it, it's not there. And we know better, because we can see it now. Imaging, biology, genetics, all of it tells us that it's there, but we got to get past this age-old hangover, literally. It's a hangover of a bygone era that treats people like they don't have this deserving right because their physical illness is an illness that hasn't been accepted yet. Well, there have been a lot of physical illnesses before us that weren't accepted for a long time. Once they did, it turned around. We're having to move that timetable up because we don't want the councils of patience and delay telling us that we can't move it up. Yes, we can. We can move that up. If we demand it, we say, no, it's not good enough to say, oh, we'll wait. No, that's not what Dr. King said at Birmingham jail. Wait. Those who counsel wait have got a different idea of America in mind, not our America. And I just want to say to you, thank you for what you've done, because you've been fighting the biggest fight even within the mental health community. I remember we didn't want to let certain mental illnesses in the parity bill. Imagine the mental health community dissing its own. Oh, well, we know these are biologically based. Back then, we're not so sure about these affective disorders. They're not, because they could sink our chances for parity. You know that. That's what they said. Until we insisted, no. We're in it together. It's not us versus them. It's just us. It's just us. It's because it's all of us. And it's a common fight. And And again, it's personal. You want to know, this is about research, it's about legislating, it's about caring about the people we love. That's it. That's not a bill, it's not a CDC, it's not all this, although it's all in its practical form. Essentially what it is we're taking care of people we love. That's what it's about, taking care of people we love. You can call it health care, but it's just what we give people when we love them. And we don't want to not give them that because it might mean that they're not around us as much, which we would want. So it's simple. It's basically, you look at those pictures, you get choked up, you feel like this is not right. It isn't right. Because we're looking at it as an issue, not as a human being. We're wanted there to be there for them because, you know what? It could easily be us that's marginalized, who's forgotten about, that's not given the kind of attention. And so I just say to all of you, you're the heroes for coming, staying in the fight, not being afraid to step up and be spokespersons for this fight, because a lot of other people who can't make the fight are counting on you to make that fight. And of course, Kitty's been right there in the middle of it all the time. I think Janine and I and Kathleen's parents are here tonight. I want to thank them for coming, because give them a round of applause. Again, it's all personal. At the end of the day, what made so much a difference to me is getting some more acceptance. I got total acceptance from my dad for all but I got more because he was willing to listen and understand and get past, because he was brought up in a different age. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. All you need is a good swift kick in the ass. Come on, let's get with the program. And you know what? To his credit, he evolved, his thinking evolved, and it was, in addition to this being a very, political issue, it was very personal at the very end, because it was about reconciliation with me and the feelings that I had of being not accepted for my illnesses because they weren't, as recognized and accepted in his generation. But he changed, and that's to his credit, because he had changing to do. Still, a lot of folks out there. But I just want to let you know I'm going to stay in the fight. We're going to launch my uncle's moonshot anniversary next May 25th, where he said we're going to send a man on the moon, return him safe within a decade, as the new frontier for our time is the last medical frontier, and that's brain research. To understand this, the quicker this stuff's all going to be in our rearview mirror. And they think the brain's too complicated, too complex, too many things involved. Wait a second. This is America. You know what? We know one genetic marker that doesn't need to be discovered, and that's that we're in it to win it if we've got the right shout out and the goal, because America can do it. They didn't think it was possible in the beginning of the 60s. Go to space, go put someone on the moon, return. I mean, scientifically, that was a big deal back then. We're in this generation, we're going 2010 beyond. You tell me we can't conquer this within 10 years, as much as people put up big, roadblocks and say, oh my God, by the time we get around. Nuh-uh. When we set our mind to it and we're in it to win it, we're going to do it. We're going to set ourselves to the task, bring everybody together. So we're not working at contrary ends, because the basic science is universal. There are different exits off that ramp. My exit, ooh, there comes the addiction. Ooh, gotta get on that exit. I'm gonna need that cure. And depression, gotta get on, find that exit. Which one is that? But we're on the same highway. We're on the same road. And if we're all building that highway and road together, we're gonna get to our proper exits at the right time because we're all gonna be working it together. The age-old African proverb, if you want to get something placed fast, go alone. But if you want to get far, go together. And we're going to go together by building the alliances that make it so that we're not just fighting eating disorders. Well, guess what? On the other side of the eating disorders is the biggest public health problem our country's facing, and that's chronic obesity. And no one wants to talk about that. Well, guess what? they're about to start talking about, or they're starting to talk, and the person is saying this is important. Well, guess what? It's all the same. You know, and you've got big challenges ahead with the implications of that in terms of the heart, the cardiovascular system, the endocrine system, the digestive system. Guess what? It's all the same thing, same fight. Until we start thinking like, as a team, that we're all in together, we're not going to get to where we need to go. And that's where, you know, we're going to be successful, is when we strategize and take this out of something that's being marginalized politically and personally in our lives and bring it right into the mainstream, because everybody's got a stake in the research, the science that's going to be done to set everybody free from being held up and slowly killed because we're not taking this enemy. We're not taking this enemy seriously. That's what we're going to have to do. And I just want to thank all of you for being here and constantly showing up and getting your friends to sign up and doing everything, because, you know, it's political will. What happened with civil rights, it didn't just happen because people said, oh, that's a nice thing, we start treating each other with dignity and respect, and we want to treat each other like we'd like to be treated. No, it was because a lot of people got involved politically and said, hey, guess what, this is not America to be treating people like that. And we finally got with it, and we got our consciences raised. That's what's going to happen here. We personalize it. It's what it's about. All personal, again, fundamental. It's people we love, and we wouldn't accept any less out there for any one of our friends or family. And why would we not accept any less for anybody else? And that's the universal challenge that we have as Americans, to remain a family, essentially, in the sense that we're all, you know, got that great gift to be able to give to one another, and we should all do it. So I want to thank you all. I want to acknowledge a friend of mine, Garrett Staglin. His fight's our fight as well. He had a son had faced schizophrenia in midterm of his sophomore year at college. Instead of running away from him, he ran towards him. That is winning it. And what did he do? Next time he did turn around, he started a foundation. He's the single largest fundraiser in this country for neurological mental illnesses. Runs an international mental health research organization that accrues to everybody's benefit. All because instead of saying, oh, that's my problem now, no, he said, it's my problem now, I've learned more about it, it's everybody's problem, it's what we all should be able to win for. And he's working to make this one mind on brain research our cause, so that we all benefit, because it's all of our fight. It's universal, accrues to everybody. So please welcome. I just want to double up and say thank you for acknowledging Rachel Bornstein and Laurel Havis. You know, one thing is, you know, when I hold these things up, and I'm always the man because I like being the man, but guess what? They're people that make this happen. And they're the people that are behind the scenes, invariably. You know who they are. They're everybody, because they're the ones that make it happen. So we all need to stick in this together. It's not one person doing this. It's a team approach, and that's why having each and every one of you here is so critical to this effort. Thank you. I'm very